Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you all are doing well today. Another watch we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at a Bulova self-winding, waterproof, 666 feet dive watch from the 1960s. I'll see if I can get a little bit of a close-up here of this piece. It's really a beautiful example. Bulova really pushed the boundaries of what really was innovative for dive watches during this time. This watch and its movement are a great example of exactly what they were capable of doing. There were many different variations of the 666 feet dive watches that were produced. This is the reference 386-1 version of this piece. The 386 came in many different configurations, dials, and versions. They have a whole line, so there's 386-1, the 386-1, 386-2, and so on. It's a really beautiful watch. A black dial black dials are something that I actually haven't covered. I haven't covered a ton of watches that have black dials, which is kind of an interesting thing if I look at the watches that we've covered on the channel. So I was excited to at least get this piece in. It's faded really nicely, and some really nice pictures on our Instagram if you want to check those out as well. But we're going to go in depth into this piece, tell you a little bit about the history of Bulova and their dive watches that they produced and the movement that was used in this specific piece. So without further ado, let me flip perspectives so you can take a look at this watch. Alright, so let's take a look at this really cool Bulova diver from the 1960s. Again, playing around with the new camera, so excuse me if I have some issues with the focus. But what we're looking at today is, as mentioned in the introduction of this video, is a Bulova 660 feet dive watch from the 1960s. The watch is a coveted watch by collectors of vintage dive watches. I think it's definitely a piece that a lot of people would, a lot of collectors look to add to their collection because of the significance of Bulova in the history of dive watches, and just how significant they were in sort of the what Bulova did in demonstrating what they could do with the technology that they had produced. So in the 1960s, if you cast your memory to the 1960s, maybe you weren't living at that time, but in the 1960s, scuba diving was becoming more and more popular sport. A lot of it took place in the militaries across the world, but it was sort of expanding to being sort of a hobby that people took up. And unlike today, where we have dive computers that can be used on dives to tell you to make sure that you dive safely, those were not around. And so what divers had to use were instruments that could tell time, and that is exactly what a wristwatch, a dive wristwatch's purpose was. So obviously you know of the brands like Rolex, who have the Rolex Submariner and Omega Seamasters that were produced in order to accomplish the goals that the divers had for maintaining a safe dive. At the time, 600 feet was sort of a standard depth rating that dive watches were assigned. But what Bulova did was decided to push the limits on the depths that they could bring their watches to, and that is sort of where the 666 feet divers came from Bulova. Now, I'm sure what your mind probably goes to when you think about the number 666 is something to do with the devil, antichrist, or evil in general. There have been many instances, and you know, that would be a pretty good connection to make between this watch and maybe the incredible depths that one could go to when wearing this watch. The company decided to produce this watch to allow for people to go to this depth rating. It's something like 203 meters, which is fairly far. This is the 1960s is when they started to produce the 666 feet dive watches, and there were many different variations on this piece, on the version of these dive watches. They obviously needed to produce something that was very wearable, very durable, and so they went with a stainless steel case for this one, which is reference 386-1. So they went stainless steel case, which is in pretty great condition. You can see very compact design for the case, and if you look, I'll try and focus on the lugs here. Again, excuse my camera work. I'm still learning here, but you can see the case is pretty robust, very well built. They also wanted to ensure that the bezel was extremely usable, and so on this piece you actually have a bidirectional dive bezel that can be used to time your dives. And so stainless steel case, a really usable bezel, legible dial. So as you can see on this piece, the 386-1, you've got a black dial with tritium hour markers, numbers at 6, 9, and 12, a date at 3 o'clock, which extremely legible, easy to read, especially when you're going to be at depths that you would be at. Large crown that allow you to adjust the time. This beads of rice bracelet, stainless steel bracelet, is aftermarket. It's not the original one that comes with this piece, but I do think it actually looks quite nice on this. Bulova also produced during this time period compressor cases, which were rated to 600 feet, and this was pushed the brand forward, and is known as the devil divers of this era. So as I mentioned, this is the reference 386-1, which are produced in different variations. There were different variations of the 386 reference that were produced by the company. Different dial configurations, but the basic setup is always very similar for these pieces. And you can think about it as, these pieces need to have should have basic functionalities, because these were dive watches that were used to go to depths that were not as common as where other folks maybe had been to themselves. Get this focus here just before I continue, so you can take a look at this. There we go. One thing to note about this piece is you can see at 11 o'clock the tritium loom is falling off just a little bit, but I don't think it really detaches too much from the overall aesthetic of the piece. Now, of course, when you're talking about these specific watches, one of the things that has to be considered is the idea that the movement has to be pretty robust, pretty well built, and so Bulova used the caliber 11 ALACD. This movement is really like a no-nonsense, very robust movement made by Bulova. It was thought of very highly, and what's really unique about these movements actually have to do with how they approach the mainspring barrel. So in this movement, the mainspring barrel is actually sealed, and the purpose of this is basically to say that the movement isn't probably going to break, and so I'm going to seal in the barrel to make this an even more robustly built movement. Unfortunately, we know mechanical watches are always going to, things will come up where they may need to be replaced, and so the barrel, if opened, would eventually break the barrel drum or lid. And so I'll say this is a vote of confidence from Bulova to say these movements are really well produced and super robust, but at the same time, it's interesting that they went that way instead of making it easy to swap out or anything like that. The case is 35 millimeters in diameter, 18 lug width. As I mentioned, the watch has. I'm gonna just put my memo seal down really quickly just to put this guy on. I tried to go with the water theme here. The watch is on this aftermarket beads of rice bracelet. Give me 1 second while I get things focused here. Aftermarket beads of rice bracelet. If you flip it over, you can see the case back has. Let me just open up this watch here. You can see the case back has Bulova and waterproof, and you've got your little diver on the. There we go. Come on. I swear one day I'll be an expert at using this camera, but for right now, here's. I'll have to just slowly but surely get used to it. I appreciate your patience as I work out the kinks too. That's definitely. Come on. There we go. So we've got Bulova waterproof with the little diver on the back there. Thank goodness I was able to get that. But yeah, 35 millimeters. I'll put it on my wrist so you can take a look at what it looks like on the wrist. I again think the beads of rice looks really great with this piece. So get the focus here. There we go. So it looks really nice on the wrist, especially with the beads of rice. It's kind of funny because beads of rice is oftentimes thought of as maybe a little bit more on the dressier side of things, but I actually think it looks quite nice on a dive watch like this. It fits really nicely. 35 millimeters always fits great, and I think is a really beautiful piece to have on the wrist. So yeah, went with the ocean theme here. I have my memo seal that I'm wearing on my wrist right now. I'm sure one is above water, the other is below water. But regardless, is a fun way to explore watches in the world around us. What I think would really go well with this piece is if you put it on something like a NATO strap. Dive watches always look great if combined with a NATO strap. Allows you to have a little bit of pop of color. I do think that you can probably have something like some sort of leather strap on this piece as well. Maybe dress it up a little bit and have that sort of ironic combination going on. Either way, dive watches are always great to mix and match straps with, so definitely an opportunity there to enjoy it. If you're in the mood for 1960s, dive watches is a great example, and it's been a lot of fun to sort of research and cover. I've got a lot of nice comments on Instagram about it, which has been fun to talk to folks who are sort of into the watch world a little bit and are sharing their thoughts on these pieces, because the Devil Divers are definitely a collectible piece. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this watch. I'll flip perspectives so we can close out the video. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this Bulova 666 feet dive watch and you weren't too scared of the fact that I was saying that number so many times, especially with its association with the devil. If you want to see some more about this piece, we have an article on our website if you want to check that out, and we also have more pictures of this piece. There'll be a link on our article if you want to take a look at it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this dive watch. I do think dive watches from the 1960s are super attractive for collectors, and these Bulovas are a great place to go for that. Love to hear your thoughts. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, it really does help me out. And if you are new to Life on the Wrist, be sure to subscribe to the channel and share this with your friends who might be interested in watches, because we cover a range of topics about watches on the channel, so we'd love to have you all part of the Life on the Wrist family. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.